Hi everyone, this video is going to show me replacing the thumbsticks on these controllers and then cleaning them up as well as repairing them, getting them ready for sale. As you can see, they're pretty dirty. I'll go ahead and test them, see what's wrong. Both just ended up having stick drift issues. The first one is a model 1697, which means it has a headphone jack, but it doesn't have Bluetooth. And then the Camo one is a 1708, the updated version that has Bluetooth. I'm just testing here. You can see the buttons are actually sticking in. It looks like someone probably poured a soda down it. I'm not really sure, but it's pretty gross inside. And it's always good if you're working on more than one thing, just take a quick note of what you're working on so that you know what it needs. Then you can come back and check and make sure you did everything that needs to be done. And this is the 1708. You can see the thumbsticks are clearly worn out. Someone was pretty rough with this controller. And it ended up that the left stick has drift. You can see that the stick's not being moved, and it is showing that the Y-axis is stuck. Alright, time to dive in. Pop off the side covers first, and then remove the battery cover. As always, I try to take the sticker and peel it so you don't poke a hole through it. It just seems better for resale value. It's a little sticky, it can be hard to get off, but it doesn't really take that long. And then we'll go ahead and take out the 5 T9 Torx screws. I am using these tools. I am going to be selling kits in the future that does come with the tool as well as new thumbsticks. So just a quick replacement kit. If you are replacing the thumbsticks, this is as far as you need to go. You take out those 5 screws, pop them on, and then you put the 5 screws back in and you're done. Obviously we're not done with this controller because it's pretty gross and broken. I'm going to go ahead and desolder the vibration motors. The black and gray are for the trigger vibration motors, and then the red and black are for the lower vibration motors. And then we'll take out the 2 T6 Torx screws holding in the daughter board. And then we can get a look at those thumbsticks. Or analogs, I should say. So you can try to clean these, but this one is such bad drift that I'm just going to go ahead and replace the potentiometer. So I just flood it with a bit of extra solder. It makes it easier to get everything hot and flowing, and then just pull it right out. Adding some Amtech 559 flux just to make the solder flow better. And then take some solder braid and wick out the solder. I ended up having one hole that didn't come completely clear. And it was actually just easier to add some solder, as you can see I'm doing here, and then just heat the solder and push that leg through. Sometimes it's easier than fighting with getting that last bit out. It doesn't really change anything. It's going to need solder there eventually anyways. And we'll just solder the other 2 legs, clean off all the excess flux, and then pop it back into place. And on a normal controller that isn't absolutely disgusting, we'd be done with the repair, but this does need whatever was spilled on it. Let's call it soda because that's less gross. We're going to get all that cleaned off and then get this reassembled. So you can see here the buttons are actually stuck in place. Normally when you're disassembling it, they just fall out, but these are so sticky that they're actually sticking right to the controller itself. And I'm just cleaning the PCB. Some of this gunk wouldn't come off, so I did use a very, very fine wire brush just to get it off. You don't really want to put any pressure because you don't want to damage the traces, but it's just a good idea to get some of that gunk removed. And then for the rubber, I just go ahead and spray it down with rubbing alcohol, just because it will sanitize as well as clean. It does help break down the gunk. It can be a little harsh on the rubber, so I do go ahead and make sure it's cleaned off after, just so it doesn't become brittle and deteriorate over time. So when trying to remove the gunk from this, it ended up actually being too sticky for the cleaning wipe or alcohol to take off. So I ended up using some straight edge tweezers just to scrape off the D-pad and get it clean, and then go back over it and remove the residual gunk from it. With a controller this sturdy, it's a good idea to clean the headphone jack. Any buildup in there is going to cause it to have audio distortion, and sometimes the microphone won't work as well. So the easiest way to do it is just spray some alcohol in and then use compressed air to just blow the alcohol and hopefully debris back out. And we'll just go ahead and put the remaining T6 Torx screws in. All the ones inside are the same screws, so it doesn't matter if you mix them up. And then we'll add some flux and resolder the vibration motors. If you ever have a vibration motor that stops working, it's typically that the wire has come undone either on the motherboard or on the vibration motor itself. I've rarely had a vibration motor itself fail. The ones in the trigger are often have the failure point at the trigger itself. So you just unscrew the screws on there and resolder the wire to the motor itself. Now here's where I do mess up. You can see the two little white pieces left on the mat. I did forget to install them, and you'll see later on I do actually have to disassemble the whole controller to get those back in. They just have a little bit extra support for the LB and RB buttons. You can leave them out, but I just like to put them back in because they came with it. They're there for a reason. Here it is all reassembled, and I think looking much better. I did go ahead and test it. All the buttons are moving freely. There's no more stick drift, and this is ready for sale now. If you've made it this long, thank you for watching. I'm going to go ahead and repair another controller now. This is the 1708 Camo model. It does have stick drift. I did go ahead and switch tools because these are the ones I normally use, not the ones that come in the kit. They do make it a little bit faster. So I go ahead and use electric, the crappiest, cheapest screwdriver I can find, just because it's low powered and is less likely to break the plastics. On this model, the design changed a little bit, so you only have to desolder the vibration motors for the triggers. The other ones can just hang there as they don't run through the controller. You can still take them off. It's just an extra 2 wires. If they get in your way, it's really not that much more work, but just save the time and not take them off. In addition to stick drift, this one also, the button just didn't feel quite right when moving it around, so I'm going to go ahead and replace the whole analog stick. So I do go ahead, add some Amtech 559 flux, and then flood on a little bit more solder. And I just grab a solder sucker, heat the solder, and push the button, and it tends to suck out the solder pretty well. The good thing about these newer controllers is the pads are actually a lot bigger. It's hard to tell on camera, but this model versus the older one, the pads are bigger, so it actually makes it way easier to get the solder out of the joints. And we'll just go ahead and wiggle this free and pop in a new one. I do use Alps replacements. They tend to cost a bit more. You can get really, really cheap ones, or you can get ones that actually work. I don't like things to come back, so I just go ahead and buy the better ones. I ended up having to buy a huge bulk pack of about 100 to get a decent price on them, but it's definitely worth it in the end. And then I just put a little bit of solder on the tip there, and that's just to solder on 2 points to hold it in place, and then you can go ahead and properly solder all the joints. And we'll just wipe off the excess flux, and this one's repaired. I'll give it a quick cleanup. It's nothing like the last one. Nobody decided to pour a soda down it, so it just has the normal buildup on it. It's always a good idea to get it clean. There's a little bit of what looked like pet hair in this one, so I just sprayed alcohol and got all the residual junk out of there. This wire can be a little tricky to get back on. You just want to line it up and put an even pressure down. If you can grab it and spin it and it doesn't pop off, you know you have it in place. And just go ahead and blow everything out with air before I reassemble, just to make sure there's no dust or pet fur left over. If you do have broken controllers lying around, any of the internal T6 screws are great to put in right here. They don't come with it, but it does make the controller feel a lot more solid once it's put back together. And here we have it with those new thumbsticks installed, looking much better. Now I do notice a little bit more dirt here. It's never too late to go back and do a little bit more cleaning if you see that there's some buildup you missed. Better to get it clean than sell something that's kind of gross looking. I do a quick test here just to make sure everything's working. I do test further off camera, but it's pretty boring and no one wants to watch that. But with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.